guys, today I show my face because we reached 3,000 subscribers. How do I look, guys?
Sup fellow degenerates, and welcome to yet another video where I try to place a character from one anime into another, inviting the absolute rage of said fandom into my comment section for interaction points. Today's episode is all about a certain high school boy with psychic powers who has to suppress his emotions to prevent them from going bananas. Somehow this seems very familiar. Almost like I've done this once before. Oh well, must be my imagination. Mob Psycho 100 is an anime about 8th grader Shigeo Mob Kageyama who has tapped into his inner wellspring of psychic prowess at a young age. But the power quickly proves to be a liability when he realizes the potential danger in his skills. Choosing to suppress his power, Mob's only present use for his ability is to impress his longtime crush Tsubomi, who soon grows, well, bored of the same tricks. In order to gain more control over his skills, Mob enlists himself under the wing of Arataka Reigen, a total con artist claiming to be a psychic himself. He shamelessly exploits Mob's powers for simple pocket change. By now, exercising evil spirits on command has become a part of Mob's daily monotonous life. Before we get to looking at what Mob can actually do for us, we do need to address a very important matter. This is quite a personal thing as well, but you know I'm going to just shamelessly force my opinion on you guys anyway, so just bear with it. The only guy who can rock a bowl cut and still look cool as fuck is Future Trunks. No offense to my boy Mob, but he do be looking like that ballsack chin kid from One Punch Man. But that's enough roasting coming from my goofy looking ass, so let's just take a look at what Mob can do. It's Mobbin' time. Let's start by discussing what type of powers Mob actually has. Mob is a so-called Esper, or otherwise called Psychic. He can utilize psychic energy to use his various abilities, and Mob is arguably one of the 3 strongest Espers within his own universe, only being rivaled by Keiji and Suzuki, but you know, it's debatable who out of these 3 is the actual number 1. Mob's most seen usage of his psychic abilities is his ability to use telekinesis. For those unaware of what telekinesis actually entails, here's a short summary, just like 1 or 2 sentences. Telekinesis is basically the ability to move objects with nothing but the power of one's psychic abilities and mind. Mob has shown to be particularly skilled in this specific ability, easily moving various heavy objects, buildings, around without much effort. Mob is not particularly trained in combat due to him usually avoiding conflict rather than engaging in it, but he can manage himself perfectly fine in a fight. In Mob's case, the ability of telekinesis is a bit more complex than your typical telekinesis, explanation. Mob can also use his telekinesis to create force fields, fly, increase his own physical strength, and disassemble matter itself on a molecular level and just restructure it from scratch. That last one in particular is an extremely busted, broken ass ability. He can just disassemble an opponent and reassemble them in a way where their head just pokes out of their ass, whatever. This ability should not be underestimated for sure. Next up, we have Mob's psychic energy absorption skill. He can essentially siphon psychic energy from other Espers or energy-based attacks directed against him and add it to his own pool of energy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Mob has only been shown to be able to use this ability while he is at 100% power or at the question mark % power stage. Through using this ability, he can also absorb the emotions embedded in the attack or power and feel them for himself. This is a bit of a double-edged sword though, because, since emotions can overwhelm him to the point where he feels the emotion at 100%, obviously suddenly feeling something like 100% pain or 100% sadness will get Mob off of his game for a bit, at least mentally for sure. Instead of siphoning the powers of others, Mob can also lend his powers to his allies. The recipient is capable of using the received energy to boost their own attack power and defensive capabilities. Mob can give this power to non-Espers as well, but it bleeds out pretty fast since obviously a non-Esper has no idea how to manage or use psychic powers. Mob is also a great gardener thanks to his chlorokinesis. This ability can, as his name implies, manipulate all plant life, allowing them to grow and mature at the will of the user. If only the Tree of Godly Might was canon, Turles and Mob could have taken over the world easy with Mob speedrunning the tree's growth. Just like how Goku can sense ki, Mob can sense the energy of nearby spirits and espers, but in Mob's case his range is a little bit more limited than Goku's at a maximum of approximately 20 kilometers, but it is still not very easy to sneak up on Mob because he will detect you if you get within 20 kilometers of him. And lastly, Mob has the ability to astral project himself. Although we know that he can enter the body and mind of another individual, it is currently unknown if he can actually, fully possess them, like a demonic possession, something like that, Mob's psychic powers and the way he uses them are influenced by the current emotions he feels in that moment. For example, when he reaches 100% anger or rage, he will fully use his powers for combat, although he can use any ability whenever, with the exception of like the few handful of abilities that he can only use at 100%. He is prone to letting his emotions guide him instead of, his actual powers and just decisions. This is, in my opinion, his greatest weakness, because if dealt with properly, it is highly exploitable by his enemies. One last ability we have to discuss is his ability to enter his %, power stage. This state is entered when Mob becomes unconscious under great stress or when his physical vessel is destroyed. When entering this state, he becomes a type of berserker-like character whose instincts have completely taken over. His psychic powers are also greatly amplified in the state because it serves like essentially his version of Super Saiyan. Let's just call it his version of Super Saiyan for convenience sake. Whilst attempting to create scenarios about how far Mob would get in Dragon Ball, I ended up with two distinct results. The first result is a scenario where Mob is unable to interact with ki. In this scenario, stuff like his energy absorption would not work since it couldn't absorb ki. Obviously, Mob still has other things he can do, but he would eventually lose to the likes of Raditz when he comes to Earth. And even if you say he could beat Raditz through his %% mode, I for sure think that Nappa and Vegeta would completely destroy him in the scenario where he could not, deal with ki. In this scenario, like 90% of his abilities would be completely crippled, so he really wouldn't stand much of a chance. The other scenario is a lot more interesting though, and my favorite one out of the two. In this scenario, Mob can in fact interact with ki, which would allow him to use his energy absorption skill to steal energy from his opponents. And this would also allow him to use his psychic abilities to clash with ki blasts and block incoming strikes with like psychic shields and whatever. With all of this enabled, I can see Mob getting through the entirety of Z pretty easily, honestly. How can he do all this? Simple, his ability to disassemble matter. He can use his ability on every single opponent in Z and win. Frieza can rearrange his body back, like same thing for the androids. You can make the case for Cell being able to revive with a single cell, but Mob can theoretically just disassemble him on a molecular level and just destroy each molecule, preventing Cell from ever reviving. The candidates who have the most chance of bypassing this ability would be, at least in my opinion, Buu and Vegito. Buu's absorption technique is the only thing I can see easily beating Mob by neutralizing his threat completely, because obviously being absorbed would result in a loss for Mob. And Vegito's ki shield, which he used to infiltrate Buu, could probably also be used to bounce off Mob's disassemble ability. Now I know there are people who will say, what about speed? Dragon Ball characters are way faster than Mob, right? And yeah, you would be completely right. However, in this scenario, Mob can sense enemy ki within a radius of 20 kilometers. He can put up a barrier, and once he senses something touch it, he can immediately freeze them and use his disassemble ability to quickly win the fight. Personally, I think that Mob will lose the very moment characters start getting God Ki. Mob won't be able to sense them by this point, so the previously mentioned strategy won't really work anymore. And I think it's obvious, but I will just mention this for clarity's sake. But a single tap from anyone in Super and Mob is dead. He's gone. He's just 5 feet on the ground instantly. And for these reasons, I have decided to place Mob at the Battle of Gods arc, where God Goku would be able to secure the W against him. But even still, making it to Super is a huge feat in and of itself. Mob's psychic abilities just allow him to stay in combat with opponents who are infinitely stronger than him and still have a chance to win as long as he can actually hit them with his attack. The ability to just disassemble someone on a molecular level is just pretty broken. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more similar content in the future, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss another video ever again. If you want to support me in another way, I recently set up a channel membership option. It's only $5 a month, but please only spend your money on supporting me if you can actually miss it. Things are expensive enough already as things stand, and I don't want people to get monetary issues because they want, they feel they want to support me. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.